everyone, I'm Begüm Bulgurluoglu from Turkey. I'm a high school student at Hisar Schools, and today I'll be telling you about nicotine's effect on neurons and on the brain. Approximately 50 million people are addicted to nicotine just in America. Worldwide, these numbers reach about 1.1 billion, with 6 billion people dying each year from forms of smoking. Even though nicotine is generally known as the bad guy, it is important to recognize the good and the bad effects of nicotine. Most people understand how smoking affects the lung and the heart, but what's less known is the impact that nicotine has on the brain. So first of all, let's talk about what is nicotine. Nicotine is a naturally occurring alkaloid that can be found in a wide variety of plants. It's a chemical substance found in tobacco plants that's very addictive. Chemically, nicotine is a pyridine and pyrrolidine ring-based amine. Nicotine, which is a strong alkaloid in its pure form, is a clear liquid with characteristic odor. It turns brown on exposure to air. It is water-soluble and separates preferentially from organic solvents. Simply, it's a stimulant drug that speeds up the neurons traveling between the body and the brain. Nicotine-laced tobacco is commonly smoked in cigarettes, cigarettes, pipes, chewing tobacco, as well as dry and wet tobacco. In very simple words, it's a chemical substance found in tobacco plants that's very addictive. So, where is nicotine found? As I said, it's primarily found in the tobacco plants, but it's also found in the nightshade family of plants, which include tomato, potato, eggplant, cauliflower, tea, and green pepper, and also cocoa plants' leaves. Now I want to talk a little bit about what a neuron is. As you all know, neurons are information messengers. They use electrical impulses and chemical signals to transmit information between different areas in the brain and between the brain and rest of the nervous system. Here you have a detailed look of a neuron. You can see the dendrite on the left, which receives the information, and axon terminal on the right, which sends off the message. In the neuron, there's an electrical transmission. Now, moving on to synapses. On the left here, you can see the presynaptic cell, which is the sending cell. And on the right, you can see the postsynaptic cell, which is the receiving cell. There's a chemical transmission between the two, and in between them is the synapse. Since the addiction occurs actually in the synapse, we will mostly be focusing on the synapse. Now let's have a look at nicotine's effect on neurons and on the brain. Tobacco are associated with changes to brain structure and function. Nicotine's impacts on brain development are substantially to blame for its dangers. The human brain does not fully mature until humans reach the age of 25. Nicotine can obstruct aspects of that development, resulting in long-term brain damage. Nicotine has a 2-hour half-life. This indicates that a half a dose of nicotine takes around 2 hours to leave the body. However, depending on the individual, this time frame can change from 1 hour to 4 hours. According to Mayo Clinic laboratories, it takes roughly 2 weeks for heavy tobacco users to bring nicotine levels in the urine and saliva near to those of non-smokers. Nicotine can lead to an increase in blood pressure, heart rate, blood flow to the heart, and artery constriction, as well as artery wall hardening, which can lead to a heart attack. As to everything, there are positive effects and negative effects of the nicotine. First, I want to focus on the positive effects, so we'll be focusing on the image on the right. This shows a study which uses growth results from 15 smokers, which illustrate the effect of nicotine and placebo patches in left and right parietal cortex and left and right occipital cortex. As you can clearly see, nicotine significantly increased activation in occipital cortex during both the control and rapid visual information processing tasks, suggesting a general modulation of attention. In contrast, nicotine increased activity in parietal cortex only during rapid visual information processing, suggesting a specific modulation on task performance. So, in the short term, we can see that nicotine actually increases attention. Furthermore, researchers hypothesized that nicotine may elevate symptoms in people with schizophrenia, adult ADHD, and depressive spectrum disorders, Because these individuals frequently smoke, failure to pay attention or the inability to focus on one stimulus while blocking out other is a trait shared by all of these diseases. Well, nicotine can help. Research at the National Institute on Drug Abuse has demonstrated that nicotine stimulates particular brain regions during attention-demanding tasks. Nicotine also has the potential for the pain relief and treating obesity. In fact, weight control and schizophrenia are likely to be among the earliest conditions treated with nicotine-based therapies. So to summarize this part, in the short term, nicotine enhances the mood and attention, reduces anger and tension, relaxes muscles, and decreases appetite. Now moving on to the negative effects, I want to focus on the picture on the left. The use of substance is linked to structural brain changes and altered cognitive function, especially with consistent reports of hippocampal volume deficit and poorer memory performance. In this study, they examined the effect of tobacco on hippocampal volumes and memory performance in 4 groups of adults. Total bilateral hippocampal volumes and memory performance were compared across groups controlling for total brain size. Results found nicotine groups had smaller total hippocampal volumes compared to controls. In addition to structural changes, tobacco has also been associated with declines in cognitive function. Existing studies suggest that tobacco use is associated with impaired working memory, attention, and verbal abilities that map onto brain structures that undergo changes due to tobacco use. Other long-term effects include higher risk of stroke, increased risk of dementia, and lung cancer. Now I want to talk a little bit about addiction. Nicotine imitates a number of neurotransmitters that transmit messages in the brain. Nicotine structure is comparable to that of neurotransmitter acetylcholine. Therefore, signaling in the brain is increased. The brain begins to reduce the number of acetylcholine receptors over time to compensate for the increasing signaling activity. Nicotine tolerance develops, as a result, necessitating the usage of more nicotine in the future. Nicotine also activates the brain's pleasure regions, stimulating dopamine, causing your brain to equate nicotine usage with feeling good. Nicotine is as addictive as cocaine or heroin, according to the US Surgeon General. Nicotine enhances dopaminergic transmission by interacting with nicotinic acetylcholine receptors. This, in turn, activates the reward center, which is responsible for improved mood and cognitive performance. Chronic nicotine stimulation desensitizes GABAergic neurons, causing them to lose their inhibitory effect on dopamine, and this, in turn, feeds the addiction by causing cravings. Drug addiction starts with molecular interactions that change the activity and metabolism of neurons that are sensitive to that substance. This changes the properties of individual neurons and circuits over time, resulting in complex behaviors including dependency, tolerance, sensitization, and cravings. Nicotine's actions on nicotinic receptors are known to alter neuronal activity, synaptic transmission, and ultimately behavior. Pentametric membrane proteins with 2 or more agonist binding sites and a central aqueous pore make up these receptors. When an agonist binds to the pore, it causes a conformational shift that allows ions to flow through, causes depolarization, and enhanced excitability. Nicotine alters the areas of the brain that deal with stress, learning, self-control with repeated exposure. Addiction becomes more likely as a result of these alterations. Nicotine enjoyable sensations don't endure very long, and to receive the next thrill, you need to keep on consuming nicotine. Now, lastly, I want to talk about drug tolerance. As you can see on the graph here, to equate the response to the first exposure after repeated exposures, more drug is needed to produce the same effect. When a substance is used regularly and the body becomes accustomed to its continuing presence, tolerance develops, which results in a person's decreased response to the drug. Now to conclude, nicotine is a naturally occurring alkaloid that can be found in a wide variety of plants. However, it is best known as the highly addictive substance found in tobacco. To put it in simple words, nicotine is a stimulant drug that speeds up the neurons traveling between the body and the brain. Even though it has positive effects in the short term, it shows a lot of negative effects in the long term. As mentioned above, nicotine is mostly known for causing addiction. It imitates a number of neurotransmitters that transmit messages in the brain. Nicotine structure is most similar to that of neurotransmitter acetylcholine. Therefore, signaling in the brain increases when nicotine enters. The brain begins to reduce the number of acetylcholine receptors over time to compensate for the increasing signaling activity. Nicotine tolerance develops, as a result, necessitating the usage of more nicotine in the future. Nicotine also activates the brain's pleasure regions, stimulating dopamine, causing your brain to equate nicotine usage with feeling good. Nevertheless, nicotine's enjoyable sensations don't endure very long, and to receive the next show, you need to keep on consuming more nicotine. Thank you for listening.